What if I told you some of the most talented NFL players of this era never got their chance? Not because they weren't good enough, but because something always went wrong. Injuries, bad timing, team chaos, a curse that followed them no matter what they did. Today, we're breaking down every cursed NFL player since 2000 in just 30 minutes. The guys we believed in, the ones who had "next up" written all over them until it vanished. Some names you know, others you forgot, but every story will hit. Stay with us, because these careers weren't lost, they were taken. Robert Griffin, the third few players have ever launched into the NFL with more excitement than Robert Griffin III. In 2012, RG3 wasn't just the Rookie of the Year, he was a revolution. The deep ball was electric. The read option felt new. The confidence, unshakable. Washington finally had a quarterback who could change everything. And for a moment, he did. He led Washington to a 10-6 record and a division title. The city believed again, but the high point came fast, and the crash came even faster. In the wild card playoff game against Seattle, everything turned. RG III tweaked his knee early, but kept playing. The turf was bad. His plant leg looked shaky, but the coaches, and maybe Griffin himself, refused to pull the plug. Then it gave out completely. A brutal collapse. Torn ligaments. A franchise-altering injury. That was the moment it all started slipping. Griffin came back too fast. Everyone knew it. Even Griffin. "I wasn't ready," he later said, "but I wanted to prove I was tough. And it cost me everything." After that, he was never the same. The mobility was gone. The confidence was shaken. And Washington's front office, known for dysfunction, did him no favors. They rushed him. They didn't evolve the offense. The protection failed. By 2015, he was a backup. By 2017, out of the league. Fans didn't stop caring. They knew they'd seen something rare, even if only briefly. RG3 was hope and heartbreak. A story that started like a movie and ended like a warning. And that warning? That sometimes what ruins a career isn't just injury. It's the people who should have protected you from yourself. But at least Griffin got to shine in the NFL. Our next story? He never even made it to the starting line. Marcus Lattimore. Before the injuries, Marcus Lattimore was supposed to be the guy. In college, he was dominant, powerful, visionary. The next great NFL running back, straight out of South Carolina. Coaches and scouts raved about his balance and heart. He was the kind of player that gave fans goosebumps. Then came the injury. In 2011, Lattimore tore his ACL. It was bad, but recoverable. He came back, ran strong, looked like himself. Then in 2012, against Tennessee, everything shattered. A catastrophic knee injury, dislocated, torn, twisted in every possible way. The entire stadium went silent. Even the opposing team dropped to one knee. It was one of the most brutal college injuries ever caught on live TV. Lattimore was carted off, but somehow he stayed positive. The San Francisco 49ers still believed. They took him in the 4th round of the 2013 NFL Draft, hoping he'd return, but his knee wouldn't cooperate. He spent 2 full years trying to come back, rehabbing, watching, hoping, but the body never caught up with the heart. He never played a snap. "I left it all out there," Lattimore later said, "and I'm proud of that." To this day, fans still remember him, still wonder what could have been. Marcus Lattimore didn't lose to a lack of talent. He lost to timing, to trauma, to fate, and that's what makes it so hard to let go of. Next up is a quarterback who did make it, only to have everything ripped away in a blink. Teddy Bridgewater. In 2015, Teddy Bridgewater was the face of Minnesota's future. Calm, composed, and ahead of his years. He made the Pro Bowl. The Vikings went 11-5. People weren't just hopeful. They were convinced he was the guy to build around. Then came a practice. No contact. No pads. Just a drop-back drill. Bridgewater planted his foot, and his leg gave out. Completely. Torn. ACL, dislocated knee. Reports said he was minutes from losing the leg. The ambulance came onto the field. Players wept. It was that serious. In one afternoon, the entire direction of a franchise changed. The Vikings traded for Sam Bradford almost immediately. It felt cold. And for a while, it felt like Teddy had been forgotten. But he didn't quit. He worked his way back. Slowly. Quietly. He joined the Saints. Backed up Drew Brees. And when Brees went down, Teddy stepped in. And won 5 straight games. It was one of the best comeback stories of the decade. Still, he was never the same player. The leg healed, but the explosion was gone. He bounced from Carolina to Denver, always good enough to start, but never great enough to stay. Teddy was robbed, one former teammate said, by something no one could have seen coming. He's still respected across the league, still playing, still smiling, but everyone knows how different the story could have been. And speaking of fast rises and hard falls, the next player had a season so good, it changed fantasy football forever. And then, it vanished. David Johnson. For one glorious season, David Johnson was the king of fantasy football. In 2016, he put up over 2,100 total yards and 20 touchdowns with the Arizona Cardinals. He was powerful, elusive, a threat in the air and on the ground. He looked like the next superstar back. And then just like that, it all changed. In the 2017 season opener, Johnson suffered a wrist injury that required surgery. Out for the year. Not a leg injury, but it stopped everything. When he returned in 2018, something was off. The burst was missing. The offense had changed. He didn't look like the guy anymore. By 2019, he was being benched, and then he was traded. The Cardinals sent him to the Houston Texans in the infamous DeAndre Hopkins deal, and Johnson unfairly became the scapegoat. Not his fault, but his name became attached to one of the most mocked trades in NFL history. He played well in spots, but the magic never came back. I felt like myself once, Johnson said, and I don't know if I'll ever feel like that again. A reminder of how thin the line is between dominance and disappearance. And now, to a tight end, whose story might be the most heartbreaking of all, because he came back, just once, only to lose everything again. Dennis Pitta. Dennis Pitta was never a superstar, but he was solid, reliable, a safety net for Joe Flacco, and a key piece in the Ravens' Super Bowl run. Fans loved him. Teammates trusted him. Coaches leaned on him. Then, one summer day in 2013, his hip gave out. A freak dislocation during training camp. Rare, painful, career-threatening. But he came back, only to dislocate it again in 2014. Most players would have walked away. Pitta didn't. He spent years rehabbing, fighting for a second chance. In 2016, he finally returned and led all tight ends in receptions. It felt like a miracle. And then, the hip gave out a third time. This time, it was over. It hurt, not just physically, Pitta said. It hurt because I knew I couldn't do this again. His career wasn't about stats. It was about resilience. Every fan who saw him fight back will remember the moment he fell, again, and the silence that followed. Sometimes, the comeback is the heartbreak. And next, we shift from heartbreak to a player who simply walked away, not because he had to, but maybe because he knew it wasn't worth it anymore. Jake Locker. There was a time when Jake Locker looked like he was built for the NFL. Big arm, great athlete, tough as nails. He went 8th overall to the Tennessee Titans in 2011, and the franchise believed they had their guy. But sometimes, belief just isn't enough. Locker came into a team that lacked stability. The offensive line couldn't protect him. The system kept changing. And worst of all, he couldn't stay healthy. Shoulder injuries, hip problems, foot issues. Every time he got going, something pulled him back. And when he was on the field, the inconsistency crept in. One week, he looked like a star. The next, you couldn't understand what he was seeing. It wasn't effort. It wasn't attitude. It was a combination of timing, pain, and the pressure of carrying a franchise that never really helped him. By 2015, at just 26 years old, Locker walked away from football. Retired. No farewell tour. No drama. Just gone. "I have no regrets," he said. "It just wasn't worth it anymore." Some players break down, others burn out. But Jake Locker, he just faded. Quietly, respectfully, and early. And to this day, fans on forums and Reddit still ask, what if he'd played for a real team? His story isn't loud, but it hits deep. Because sometimes, the most cursed players aren't the broken ones. They're the ones who never got a real shot. And speaking of shots that never came, our next player had all the speed in the world, but a brain that couldn't stop waving the red flag. Jahvid Best. Jahvid Best was fast, like Olympic track fast. He turned heads at Cal, then got drafted in the first round by the Detroit Lions in 2010, expected to be their next big offensive weapon. And for a short while, he was. His rookie season was electric. He could score from anywhere. But the warning signs had already started blinking. Best had suffered multiple concussions in college. Bad ones. And in the NFL, it only got worse. After another concussion in 2011, his symptoms wouldn't go away. Headaches, light, sensitivity, dizziness. Days turned into weeks, then months. And the scariest part? No one could tell when or if he'd be okay again. By 2013, he was officially done. Not from a torn knee or a broken bone, but from a brain that said, no more. "I wanted to keep going," Best said, "but I knew I couldn't risk it." Most players come back from physical injuries. Head injuries? You don't get second chances. Best later turned to track and actually competed in the 2016 Olympics for St. Lucia. A wild, rare second chapter. But his NFL career was over before it really started. His story reminds us that speed, skill, and work ethic mean nothing if your body doesn't cooperate, especially your brain. And now we go from the mind to the body, because our next player's legs betrayed him again and again until all that was left was hype and heartbreak. Kevin White. In 2015, the Chicago Bears drafted Kevin White with the 7th overall pick, hoping to pair him with Alshon Jeffrey and build a lethal wide receiver duo. White had speed, size, and looked like a future star. People were calling him the next Julio Jones. He never stood a chance. Before he could even debut, White fractured his shin. Surgery. Missed the entire 2015 season. Then came leg injuries in 2016. Shoulder issues in 2017. Soft tissue setbacks in 2018. It was like his body refused to let him be great. In 7 NFL seasons, Kevin White played in just 17 games. Not starts, total games. And in that time, he caught just 28 passes. Every offseason brought hope. Every preseason brought hype. And every regular season, silence. "I know I'm not a bust," White once said. "I know what I can do. I just haven't had the chance." Fans didn't hate him. They pitied him. Because he wasn't lazy. He wasn't arrogant. He was just cursed. To this day, Bears fans bring up Kevin White like a ghost story. A reminder that the draft gives no guarantees, not even to the guys with all the tools. And while White struggled with his body, the next player had all the talent in the world and lost it to something even darker. Justin Blackmon. Justin Blackmon wasn't just good at Oklahoma State. He was unstoppable. 2-time Biletnikoff Award winner. Over 3,300 receiving yards in 2 years. A can't-miss prospect. The Jacksonville Jaguars took him 5th overall in 2012, ready to build their passing game around him. And at first it worked. Blackmon flashed early. In one game, he had 236 receiving yards, a Jaguars rookie record. He was explosive, dominant, exciting. But off the field, things unraveled quickly. Blackmon failed multiple drug tests. He was suspended for substance abuse. Then again, then indefinitely. He played just 20 career games. His final NFL stat line: 93 catches, 1,280 yards, and a long trail of what could have been. Teammates said he was the best receiver nobody got to see. Coaches couldn't believe the natural ability, but the off-field struggles never stopped. By 2015, he was out of the league entirely. No major comeback, no tearful redemption arc, just silence. Some fans still hold out hope. Others have moved on. But every time a new wide receiver is drafted early, someone brings up Justin Blackmon, the guy who could have been elite, if only he'd stayed clean. And while Blackmon's curse was internal, the next guy was just lost, misused, misunderstood, and soon memed forever. Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson was a star at Alabama, a national champion, and a bulldozer with speed. The Cleveland Browns made him the 3rd overall pick in 2012, and in his rookie year, he scored 11 touchdowns. Not bad at all. But the stats didn't tell the whole story. Richardson was hesitant. He missed holes. He ran like a guy thinking too much. And then came the shocker. Just 1 year in, the Browns traded him to the Indianapolis Colts. That's when it fell apart. Richardson couldn't adjust. He looked slow, confused, disconnected. In 2013, he averaged just 2.9 yards per carry. In 2014, the same. Then he was benched, then cut. He bounced to the Raiders, then the Ravens, then the CFL, even tried the AAF, but the burst was gone. The internet had a field day. He became a meme. If there's a wrong hole, Trent will find it. Harsh? Sure, but painfully accurate. Looking back, it wasn't just on him. He was misused, mismatched, mishandled. But the results? Still tragic. He finished his career with 614 carries, but only 2,032 yards. A top 3 pick, remembered not for greatness, but for confusion. And coming up next, a player who had all the talent and just couldn't stay standing. Sam Bradford. Few players have ever started with more promise and ended with more shrugs than Sam Bradford. He was the number. 1st overall pick in 2010, the golden-armed quarterback from Oklahoma, who looked like the next franchise savior. And at first, he was solid. NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Over 3,500 passing yards, a calm presence, and real poise. But then came the first ACL tear, then the second, then a shoulder, then a knee again. Bradford's career turned into a cycle. Return, re-injure, get traded, return again. Despite the injuries, he somehow remained a hot commodity. Teams still wanted him. The Eagles gave him a shot. Then the Vikings traded a 1st-round pick to get him when Teddy Bridgewater went down. For a few games, he even looked elite. In 2016, he set the NFL record for completion percentage, but it never stuck. His body couldn't hold up. Every step forward led to another limp back. And the more he got hurt, the more people questioned how he kept landing contracts. In total, Sam Bradford earned over $130 million in his career, more than many Hall of Famers. Fans started calling him the Fragile Millionaire, a guy who had all the talent and all the money, but none of the durability. Yet, he never complained, never lashed out, never blamed anyone. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way, Bradford said. You do what you can. Some players get cursed with injuries. Others get cursed with criticism. Sam Bradford got both and still walked away quiet and classy. But where Bradford was gentle, the next player was electric, until speed met reality. Darren McFadden. In college, Darren McFadden was a phenomenon. He was the star of Arkansas, a 2-time Heisman runner-up, and the most explosive back in the country. When the Oakland Raiders took him 4th overall in 2008, it felt like the start of something huge, and it nearly was. McFadden had rare burst. When healthy, he looked unstoppable. He had games with 200-plus yards, highlight reel cuts, and breakaway speed that left defenders frozen. But the key phrase was always, when healthy. He suffered from turf toe, knee issues, ankle sprains, and more. Almost every season ended with an injury report. He never played a full 16-game season with the Raiders. Still, every year, fans would say the same thing. This is the year McFadden stays healthy. And sometimes, it almost was. In 2010, he had nearly 1,600 total yards. In 2015, as a backup in Dallas, he rushed for over 1,000 yards. But it was never sustained. McFadden's body just wouldn't cooperate. And the worst part? You could see the greatness under the surface. It was right there, just out of reach. He retired quietly in 2017, still loved by Arkansas fans and respected by teammates. But his name always sparks the same reaction. Man, he could have been special. And speaking of college legends who nearly pulled it off, the next guy had it all. Until one snap changed everything. Jaylon Smith. In 2015, Jaylon Smith looked like a future top 5 pick. A dominant linebacker for Notre Dame, he had everything. Speed, instincts, leadership, and that it factor. But in his final college game, the Fiesta Bowl, disaster struck. He shredded his knee, tearing multiple ligaments and damaging nerves. Doctors weren't sure he'd ever walk normally, let alone play again. But the Dallas Cowboys took a chance in the second round of the 2016 draft. They were patient. They believed. And it almost worked. Smith sat out a year, then came back in 2017. And for a stretch, he was incredible. In 2018, he racked up 121 tackles. In 2019, he made the Pro Bowl. He looked like the bet had paid off, but something wasn't right. The nerve damage had changed his gait. His movement was stiff. He lost the elite sideline-to-sideline burst. By 2021, the Cowboys released him. Other teams tried, Green Bay, New York, New Orleans, but the magic had slipped away. Jaylon Smith's comeback was inspiring, but it didn't last. "I'm grateful," Smith said, "even for the pain. It made me who I am." And sometimes, the hardest part of being cursed is getting so close to beating it. Now from knees to spines, the next story is one that shook the entire football world. Ryan Shazier. Ryan Shazier was a rising star. He was the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Fast, vocal, fearless. In 2017, he looked like a top 5 linebacker in the league. And then in Week 13, against the Bengals, it happened. A routine tackle. Nothing dirty, nothing unusual. But Shazier didn't get up. He couldn't move his legs. The stadium fell silent. He was carted off, taken straight to the hospital, diagnosed with a spinal contusion, and the terrifying reality that he might never walk again. And yet he did. Slowly, painfully, courageously. Shazier relearned how to walk, then jog, then lift weights. He never played another down, but he remained part of the Steelers' locker room. A presence, a leader, a living reminder of how quickly football can change lives. His story became national news. Not because he returned to football, but because he returned to life. "Football gave me everything," Shazier said, "but I knew when it was time to let it go." His injury wasn't just career-ending, it was life-altering. And the fact that he smiled through it all, that's what made him unforgettable. Next, we revisit a name that echoes with heartbreak, because his career didn't end in the NFL. It ended in the biggest game of his life, Colt McCoy. At Texas, Colt McCoy was a legend, the all-time winningest quarterback in NCAA history. He led the Longhorns to the BCS National Championship game in 2010, ready to cement his legacy. But just 5 plays in, disaster struck. McCoy took a hit to the shoulder and never returned. Texas lost to Alabama, and McCoy's final moment as a college hero ended on the bench, with tears in his eyes. "I would have given anything to finish that game," he said, "but I just couldn't throw." He entered the NFL as a 3rd-round pick by the Cleveland Browns, And that should have been a red flag. The Browns weren't exactly a quarterback rehab center. McCoy bounced around as a backup: San Francisco, Washington, New York, Arizona. Reliable, smart, always ready, but never the guy. He became the ultimate emergency quarterback. Fans respected him. Coaches trusted him. But everyone knew it could have been different. Colt McCoy wasn't cursed because of attitude or injury. He was cursed by one moment, one hit, one game he never got to finish. And now, to wrap it all up, we zoom out, because for every unlucky player, there's a pattern, a curse, a question we still can't answer. The curse of what could have been. The stories you've heard today aren't just bad luck. They're reminders of how thin the line is between stardom and silence. Robert Griffin III had a franchise in the palm of his hand. Marcus Lattimore never even stepped on an NFL field. Teddy Bridgewater, Darren McFadden, Ryan Shazier, all names we remember not for what they did, but for what they could have done. Injuries, bad timing, team dysfunction. It wasn't one thing. It was everything. And that's the curse. The almost. The what if. Because for every Brady, there's a Bradford. For every Megatron, a Kevin White. This league gives no guarantees. It breaks hearts more than it builds legends. But still, fans remember. They ask the same question every season. What if they just stayed healthy? Some players go down as legends. Others go down wondering what could have been. Thanks for sticking around and reliving these stories with us. If you felt something watching this, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and let us know in the comments. Who's your ultimate what if player?